Hey guys, my name is Jonathan Reich. I'm a licensed CPA in the state of Louisiana, and today I wanted to talk to y'all about how some of my small business clients send payments internationally. And that can often be a pain point in a lot of small businesses who find themselves sending wire fees, using slow ACHs, even worse, mailing checks, not realizing that there's an exchange rate, if your vendor doesn't want to be paid in USD, etc. And so a lot of my clients source different products from Asia. As much as we hate to say it here in the States, made in China is just about on everything. Um, Other clients source automotive parts from places like Mexico, where we have NAFTA, and then others, well, maybe a handful, one or two, get services provided from vendors in Canada. So, you're paying in Mexican pesos, you're paying in CAD, and then you're paying in whatever denomination that any other affiliated company may want to be paid in, whether that be USD or the local currency. And so that can kind of cause a lot of confusion, especially if you don't know what you're doing. And so now there are platforms out there that can kind of help bridge that gap between small businesses and other businesses across the globe. And those are typically payment platforms, bill payment providers such as like Bill.com, Melio, PayPal, Wise, Stripe. They all do it. And so today we're going to talk about what is the best platform for small businesses to use. Because at this point, if you're watching this video, you probably already explored the idea of just wiring funds. Wiring funds works so long as you don't mind paying $50 a wire, and your recipient doesn't mind either being paid in USD or you paying the exchange rate, which typically the bank is going to mark up a few basis points, therefore further increasing the discrepancy and the amount of money you're going to have to pay. So you really need a platform that can work with you to make sure you're not leaving money on the table. I mean, small businesses are already hard enough to run, so why make it harder? So the first one we're going to talk about today is Wise. So Wise has been around for a while. It was formerly known as TransferWise. Wise is useful because it's low cost and it's efficient because it can showcase multiple exchange rates at the same time. So like if I'm trying to make payments to maybe vendors both in Canada and Mexico, you can kind of see what those fluctuations are. And then you can schedule your payment accordingly. But Wise is just about that. It can meet your needs. It doesn't excel necessarily anywhere that is going to necessitate a call out, in that it quietly does what it's supposed to. It doesn't excel. It doesn't have excellent reporting. It just kind of works. And so it's got a pretty simple dashboard, which is good if you're looking for something that you don't want to have to train bookkeepers on. It does connect to QuickBooks Online. It connects to Xero. It uses an API. It can also connect to your bank account, so you can use it as a bill pay platform. But that's about it. Wise doesn't really do anything else. It's not cheap. It's not necessarily expensive. It does have different options. You can send money. You can receive money. You can use a credit card in lieu of, although you will be paying a typically 2 to 3% fee. Your fee for using the service is going to be 0.57% plus any exchange rate fluctuations. But that's really all there is to Wise. It doesn't necessarily need to be talked about anymore, just because it's just one of those platforms that works. It's nothing to write home about, essentially. So that'll move us right on to the next guy. The next guy that I want to talk about is actually Melio. Melio is kind of the new kid on the block. I've been recommending Melio to a lot of my clients lately, just because it's a friendly user interface. It's similar to Wise in that you don't have to train someone to work on it. Basically, you can start inputting your bills, and not just international payment bills, but you can input your bills for all of your businesses, pay them, and then if you need to pay international vendors, it's also a seamless integration with that, and that you can do it without having to take the time to learn the system. Everything is very transparently presented. You're not going to be caught with any bogus fees. It's going to be very upfront with what it's going to cost you to send that. And what it's going to cost you is kind of like the bottom of the market. It's some of the cheaper rates that you're going to get, and that cuts down on costs associated with sending payments. So you may only have a exchange rate to pay for plus whatever that set fee is to send your international payment. So that, in addition to the user-friendly interface, it has really fast payments. So just like a wire is instantaneous or ACH, it's just going to take a couple of business days. Melio very particular or very often finds itself being just as quick as a traditional domestic ACH. Your vendors aren't going to be waiting 5, 7, 8 business days to receive their funds, which is especially important if your account could be on a credit hold, for instance. Another big perk of using Melio is it has flexible payment options. So if you want, you can use a check, you can use an ACH, you can use a wire. But one of the neat things with Melio is you can even use a credit card when vendors don't accept credit cards. So for instance, let's say you're short on operating funds, but you have a complete line of credit available to you. You can load it up on that credit card, and then when you get your big check from that customer you've been waiting on, you can pay for it. Another thing that Melio does really well is it integrates with QuickBooks and Xero. So if you're using either of those platforms for your accounting ERP, just like that, it connects. You don't have to do any manual entries. And as a CPA, that's just the bread and butter. I don't want to have to do work twice, especially boring work like loading transactions or doing bank reconciliations. I just want it to be there, and I want it to be there correctly every time. And Melio does that for me. So pretty much, I push my clients to use Melio as often as possible just because it's cheap, it works, it integrates, it has flexible payment options, and then your vendors get the money that they need quickly. And those are some of the most important things to me that you should look for in a payment platform provider. So let's talk about the next guy. Actually, I want to do PayPal. PayPal has been around for pretty much since the dawn of the internet, and PayPal does offer international payments. The problem with PayPal, though, is they're kind of pricey. And it's just the first platform that most people kind of like gravitate towards as soon as they say, hey, I can't afford to send wires anymore, I'm going to go check out other options. PayPal does a lot of marketing. If you type in international payments, PayPal will probably be one of those sponsored hits that you'll find on the top of Google. That's fine. If you want to use PayPal, PayPal works. It's accepted globally, which makes it extremely attractive. And it can also incorporate digital wallets. But it doesn't give you that advantageous exchange rate. It doesn't give you that upfront pricing. And if you're doing a lot of frequent or large transactions, it really just kind of compounds those costs. And so if I'm advising small business owners, I try and steer them away from PayPal just because at first you're not having to pay too much. But if you're really serious about staying in business, you need to count every penny. And that's kind of what accountants like me are here for, to make sure that you're not squandering money if you don't have to. One of the good things about PayPal, even though it is kind of costly, is it's very easy to use. Most people are pretty familiar with its interface, just because you probably used it to check out on Amazon, eBay, some random t-shirt company that you wanted to buy something from. It's just kind of everywhere. So most people are pretty familiar with its interface, which is a big plus if you're looking to save on training costs. The fourth guy that I want to talk about on today's top list for international payments is Stripe. Stripe has been around for a long time as well, not as long as PayPal, but I have found it, in my opinion, Stripe is really for mid-sized businesses. It can be overwhelming. It is a good bill pay platform, and then it can also incorporate your accounts receivable, which is really handy if you kind of want everything under one umbrella and you're using like a SAP, Oracle, or like a large accounting software like Sage Intacct. But Stripe, typically you need a team of accountants, or you need a team of bookkeepers, or you need somebody on call who's a little bit more tech savvy whenever you first get this set up. It's not something that just is like plug and play. And so I recommend that for mid-sized businesses. Now, in addition to handling your accounts receivable, it can also do a whole lot of powerful things using API, which is application program interfaces. That's why I kind of recommended you have a tech savvy team. So you can kind of customize your invoices as you send them out. You can send out your payments automatically using API, schedule those payments. But you have to have someone who knows what they're doing. Otherwise, you're going to accidentally pay your vendors ahead of time, and now you're kind of up the creek without a paddle. Now, it does offer pretty competitive pricing, which is something that we want to see in a bill pay platform provider. Because like I said, you always want to save dollars where you can. However, it can be overwhelming if you just aren't familiar with the platform, if you're not very tech savvy. And so that's why I typically kind of steer my small business clients away from it, just because a lot of times they don't know what they don't know. And it's not necessary to get this deep into the weeds unless you have a team, unless you have an IT department. You're doing $200 million revenue a year. Stripe just really isn't going to be for you. And that's typically why I kind of steer a lot of my clients towards Melio, because it's just ready to roll. It takes care of business. And Stripe, you kind of need to put your training wheels on before you can go down the hill, if that makes sense. So now that we've covered some of the platforms that we're interested in using to send our international payments, what should you look for in a platform? So the first thing is you kind of want to take it for a test drive. Make sure that you're comfortable with its interface. Make sure it's simple. If you have a lot that you need to go on behind the scenes, if you need lots of reportings, if you do kind of want to plug stuff to an API and automatically pay invoices, make sure you're familiar with the platform. Don't just say, all right, I'm going to sign up for a year. Let's do it and figure it out as we go. It's a terrible way to do that. You want to make sure that you're comfortable using it. It kind of meets your business needs. And then you sign that contract that's very expensive and very hard to get out of. The other things that you're going to want to do is maybe be a little upfront with your vendors and say, hey, we're trying a new bill pay provider. Maybe you see some delayed payments for 5 to 7 business days. We're working through it. We're just migrating over to a new system. It is very timely. It's very costly. It's very difficult. So typically a little transparency with your vendors up front will go a long way. And they're going to really appreciate that, especially if you all have a working relationship with one another. The other thing you're going to want to do whenever you're looking to change your bill payment provider is if you're going to use a platform like Melio or Stripe that has multiple layers of approval, you're going to want to change your accounting processes. So if you have a bookkeeper and then like a CPA and then a business owner, and you want the bookkeeper to process the bill, the CPA to sign off on it, and the owner of the business to release the funds, you can do that within certain platforms such as Melio. But you'll need to update how you're paying these bills, who has access to the bank account, who has access to these funds, and kind of make sure that there's a clear understanding that way at the end of the month, whenever you've got all this money in your bank account, you're like, I thought you were going to pay the bills. And you say, no, I thought you were going to pay the bills. You won't run into that situation because you've already had that conversation. The final thing that you're going to want to make sure that you do is that you are integrating it within your accounting software, whether it be Xero, Sage, QuickBooks. You just need to make sure that you're not having to do double duty and pull down a file from your bill pay platform providers, like maybe a CSV, and then upload it into the accounting software. You just don't want to have to deal with all that. You really don't. It's a headache. Most payment platform providers will allow access to that. Most of them have an API that plugs into most major accounting platforms. If not, you'll need to get an IT guru, not me, I'm just the accountant, to set you up a API so that they can talk to one another and so that your data is porting from your bill pay portal to your accounting platform. Super important that that is done correctly, because otherwise you're going to have to re-enter every bill twice, whether it be via upload or manual entry. It's just a terrible idea all the way around. So some of the things to watch out for is making sure that you're not ignoring these exchange rates. You're not leaving money on the table whenever you're working with these platforms. The ones I've talked about today are pretty transparent whenever they're telling you how much something's going to cost. That is something I look for. I appreciate transparency. I'm an accountant. It's just like part of my job. Be transparent. Don't let dollars slip between the cracks. The other thing is, if you're watching this, you're probably already past this point, but don't just wire the funds. You're leaving a ton of money on the table. That kind of ties back into that first pitfall. If you're wiring funds, you're paying a lot of money to your bank. In terms of wiring fees, you're paying a lot of money to send funds at whatever exchange rate. You're not getting advantageous exchange rates. So it's just really important to make sure that you're considering using one of these platform providers. But anyway, so now that we kind of have the information that we need to successfully pick a platform. You should be able to find what's best for your business, what's going to fit. Am I a mid-sized business? If so, maybe I use Wise. If I'm a tech-savvy business, I use Stripe. Wise, would be good for anybody who's just kind of looking for something to get their feet wet. If you're really serious about running your business, you want something that's simple, that's transparent, that's cost-effective, check out Melio. And then PayPal. Too expensive. I just need to include them on the list because everyone knows them. So hopefully you got the information that you need to make an educated decision. Thanks for watching.